to all the viewers of Physio TV. I'm Dr. Prajakta Sahasrabudhe. I'm professor and head of the department at Sancheti Institute for Orthopedics and Rehabilitation, College of Physiotherapy, Cardiovascular and Respiratory Physiotherapy Department. And today we are going to discuss about cardiac rehabilitation phase 2 in today's Physio TV classroom session. So objectives of today's session are we are going to understand the screening and assessment before enrolling our patient in phase 2 cardiac rehabilitation, how we can stratify the risk, what level of supervision do we expect, how the exercise testing and exercise prescription going to be in phase 2 cardiac rehabilitation. Before going ahead, first let's understand what is phase 2 cardiac rehabilitation. So, once any cardiac intervention is done, whether it is angioplasty or coronary artery bypass grafting, or let's say conservatively managed patients, and after the maximum protection phase, that is in the hospital, patient is stabilized and sent home. After that, we have to go for the secondary prevention, and that is when we expect the patient to come to our OPDs and undergo a supervised and monitored training for empowering or capacitating their heart. It is a secondary prevention exercise. We all understand various levels of prevention. Primordial prevention is before having any risk when you're trying to prevent a disease. Then primary prevention, that you know that a patient is at the risk, and then you're taking or certain steps or making some strategies so that you're making sure that disease doesn't occur. But secondary prevention is when the disease has already occurred, and now you're either trying to limit the damage which is done or limit the impairments and symptoms patient is going through, and you're stopping the future similar episodes from occurring. So when we are speaking about secondary prevention in cardiac disease context, so there are various risk factors which are already identified, and the disease has already occurred. So if we do not control the risk factors, and if we just let it be the way it was earlier, there are chances that patient may have a future episode of myocardial infarction or ischemia or failure of the procedure also. So with that um, agenda in the mind, we are making the strategy so that future episodes does not happen and quality of life of the patient is improving. So the patient is expected to make certain lifestyle changes, and towards those lifestyle changes which we are preparing our patient. So that is our phase 2 cardiac rehabilitation. So when we are speaking about screening and assessment, uh, this is the first step. When we start with phase 2 cardiac rehabilitation is after, let's say, 5 or 6 days nowadays, an uncomplicated patient gets discharged from the hospital and cardiac care unit, and they are sent home. They are supposed to take certain precautions, maintain in-house activities, monitor their symptoms, red flags, and then once everything is settled, after 4 to 6 weeks, patients are supposed to enroll in supervised OPD-based cardiac rehabilitation, which is nothing but our phase 2 cardiac rehabilitation. So first and foremost, we have to note down the medical history, that how the event had occurred, what if there were any complications, what are the comorbidities, how the previous or the recent event which was managed, whether it is angioplasty or whether it is CABG or it is conservatively managed, what is the level of cardiac muscle damage, what are the reports, investigations. So that is the preliminary assessment or documentation of the preliminary things we have to note down. Then we are going to move to the physical assessment. So we have to check uh, the baseline parameters, vitals, how the vitals are responding on the minimal activities, on various posture changes when patient is doing room ambulation, then how the uh, parameters are responding, then if there are any musculoskeletal system changes. So this is the basic assessment we have to do, followed by a resting 12-lead electrocardiogram And then a prerequisite to begin with phase 2 cardiac rehabilitation is graded maximal exercise test, which is going to provide us with the baseline information. What is the capacity of the heart after the insult and after the initial recovery? This is going to form the baseline for us, that how we are going to formulate the exercise protocol for these patients. Of course, as I already mentioned, this is a secondary prevention exercise. So there are a lot of lifestyle modifications which we have to make, and the risk factor control is one of the important aspect of it. So we will have to note down what are the risk factors if the patient is using has any addictions, using any tobacco products, if the blood pressure, especially if the patient has hypertension or diabetes or dyslipidemia, if all the parameters are under control. What is the psychological history of the patient? Very important factor from a physiotherapist perspective is the sedentariness, and which is one of the major risk factor, and that is easily modifiable. And if you modify this particular risk factor, then if the person becomes physically active enough as per the recommendations, which we'll see in the due course, that how much and when and how is necessary, then physical activity and exercises can keep the blood pressure in check, control hyperglycemic episodes, keep maintains blood sugar levels, maintain the lipid levels, maintains the weight of the patient in check, and hence the risk factor modification is extremely important. So we have to have a baseline documentation that what is the level, that when we started, how these things were, and then when a formal training is given to these patients, how much control or how much adherence with the lifestyle was achieved. So, first of all, when we are enrolling the patient, we need to understand what is the level of risk. There is one risk of disease occurring, and then whenever we are expecting a person with diseased heart to participate in activities, it comes with certain risk. Although it is necessary, but still, because you're loading the heart may respond in a deranged way. And that's why we need to do a stratification of this risk at the baseline. So, as per the AACVPR, we categorize these patients into three risk zones, that is low, moderate, and high risk. So, what are the low risk? What is the low risk category? In these patients, there are no ventricular arrhythmias which are present. Patients do not have any new onset symptoms, angina or other symptoms like breathlessness, headaches, is not there. The hemodynamic response is absolutely normal. And on stress test, the functional capacity or is more than 7 minutes. And non-exercise testing is on the basis of the reports or investigation that ejection fraction is near normal, that is more than 50%. Patient had relatively uncomplicated procedure or uncomplicated recovery period. There is no evidence of heart failure after the episode, and there are no current signs and symptoms of the ischemia which is present. Then, on another extreme, we have the high risk category. In these, the patient may have complex ventricular arrhythmias during exercise testing or recovery. And this is going to make our jobs slightly difficult, because ventricular arrhythmias can get precipitated and may lead to adverse cardiac event very quickly. So we'll have to be very, very careful when we are dealing with these patients. This has to strictly happen in presence of a well-equipped cardiac rehab center with the crash cart at hand and everything. If patient may have chest pain on exertion, or during recovery, they may still have ST segment elevation. Usually, ejection fraction is low, less than 40%. There is a history of cardiac arrest, complex dysrhythmias may be present. They may be having some complications or evidence of uncomplicated heart failure in the immediate post-intervention or post-episode period. There might be clinical depression which is present. Uh, The in between zone is moderate risk zone. In moderate risk zone, patient may have combination of low and high. Usually, presence of angina or other symptoms may or may not be present, or they may be occurring only on the high exertion activities. That is when uh, an individual is exerting themselves beyond 7 meds. That is when the angina or symptoms may be precipitated, and at the lower intensity zones, the patient may not be having much of a problem. Their functional capacity is between 5 to 7. So they are slightly better than the high risk people, so they can easily achieve the 5 meds without having any complication. But when we increase the exertional level, they may experience the symptoms, or certain signs or arrhythmias may get precipitated. And ejection fraction is also lying somewhere in between, that is between 40 to 49%. So how the exercise testing done for these individuals? So it has to be any graded maximal exercise testing protocol. There has to be a quick screening or a list of contraindication which we will have to um, just go through, and we'll have to make sure that if we are going for a graded maximal exercise test, these things are not there in the patient. So absolute contraindications like acute myocardial infarction, high risk unstable angina, if patient is having dysrhythmias, severe aortic stenosis, uncompensated heart failure, if there is inflammation of myocardium, so myocarditis or pericarditis, physical disability, acute pulmonary embolism. Usually, these are unlikely things, but even if they are present, then we should not go ahead with the maximal testing. Then we'll have to go for submaximal options. But then in that case, we'll have to make sure that we are not going in a very high intensity zones for training. Mind you that these we are dealing with high risk individuals. They recently had a cardiac event, so we'll have to be extremely cautious. This entire exercise is done such that we are building the capacity of the patient, building the capacity of the heart, making sure that it is safe for the patient to exercise. So we'll just go through the contraindications. Then exercise testing is done. As I mentioned, usually a modified Bruce protocol for the treadmill is used. There are multiple treadmill or cycle ergometer protocols which are available, which are exercising the heart at the maximal level. Now, how do we understand the maximal um, uh, level of exertion is usually either 220 minus age of the patient or Tanaka correction. We estimate a predicted maximal heart rate. So for a 20-year-old individual, it is going to be 220 minus age, that is 220 minus 20. So 200 would be the predicted HR max. Now, in a absolutely normal individual, we might take it as HR max who doesn't have any risk of CAD. But in these patients, we cannot use this HR max directly in the carbonance formula. We have to do a graded maximal test and find out what is the actual HR max of the patient. Because if they have latent disease where coronary arteries are blocked, patient may have much lower HR max. So their tolerance level is going to be much lower. So this is just the predicted HR max, which we are going to calculate on the basis of 220 minus age. Exercise testing is done with 12 lead ECG monitoring. After every phase, the ECG recording is checked if there are any significant ST segment changes, if chronotropic incompetency is there, if abnormal heart rate or blood pressure responses are seen, what is MVO2, what is the VO2, if there are any abnormal, if there are any arrhythmias, if any of these are seen, then the test may be terminated, or patient may be experiencing chest pain, extreme breathlessness, excessive sweating, cramping. These are all indications to terminate an exercise tolerance test. So in this case, we can consider this to be a maximal effort by the patient. And at that given effort, when we are terminating the test, That is the actual HR max for the patient. This we are going to take in the Carbonance formula and calculate the intensity. Okay. This I have already spoken about, so I'm going to skip this slide. So this was about the endurance testing. When we come to the strength assessment, so most of the protocols are based on the one repetition maximum assessment. So what is 1 RM is the load which can be lifted by a particular muscle or a group of muscle only once. If you try to do another effort and the patient is able to do that, that means it is not 1 RM. If patient is not able to complete the contraction with that load, uh, then also it is not 1 RM. It is with the given load, the person should be able to do only that load. And usually it is done on the isometric testing with dynamometer. Uh, so this is the best and gold standard method that with a dynamometer, you do a maximal repetition. Whatever is the value, it is taken as 1 RM. Now, sometimes this maximal isometric contraction may be contraindicated in cardiac patient in view of um, unstable blood pressure, or if patient is having limited ejection fraction, so it may be a poor circulation. And if we are making too much, if we are making too much too strong isometric contraction, it may increase the post after load on the heart, and it may be too much for the already failing heart. So in that case, we'll have to go for the estimated 1 RM assessment. So in that, there are multiple repetition tests which can be done. So with a given load, the person is doing as many repetitions as they can. And then with a regression equation, we can actually find out what could be the 1 RM. And then we can base our strengthening protocols on this estimated 1 RM value. For low resource assessments, we have to, these are more of a performance tests which we are using in the field, like 1 minute sit to stand test, or 5 sit to stand test, or arm curl test, or abdominal crunches, or anything. So in one given minute, a person is supposed to do as many repetitions as possible. So this is overall muscle performance. It is mix of strength and endurance both. But when we do not have dynamometers, or we do not have much of a sophisticated setup in such a scenario, we can definitely go for these modes, and these will have reassessment value rather than actual protocol. Um, so basically, we can assess it at the baseline, and we can reassess, and we can comment about it whether the person has improved. But just on the basis of how many repetitions are done, we usually do not devise the protocol on the basis of that.